Under the twilight of the Qing dynasty, China was plunging deep into crisis. Externally, the country was being carved up by Western powers and Japan. Internally, the imperial court was rotten, the bureaucracy corrupt, and the people disillusioned. It was in this turbulent context that, on October 31st, 1887, in the town of Whampoa in Zhejiang province, a boy was born into a salt merchant family. The name Chiang Kai-shek would later become inseparably linked to the turbulent fate of modern China. Chiang was born in Shikou, a town located about 30 kilometers west of Ningbo. Although his ancestral home was in Heqiao, Yixing County, Jiangsu Province, a detail greatly valued in traditional Chinese society, he grew up in the Wu-speaking environment of Zhejiang. He was the second son in the family. His father, Chiang Zhaozong, died when he was just 8 years old. From then on, he was raised solely by his mother, a traditional, strict, but strong-willed woman. She became not only his material support, but also his source of spiritual strength, instilling in him a fierce determination and an unyielding will. The first major turning point in Chiang's life came in 1906. That year, he decisively cut off his queue, the long braids symbolizing loyalty to the Qing dynasty, and sent it back to his family from school, an act that shocked his entire village. It was more than just a change in appearance. It was a political declaration. Chiang had chosen the path of resistance against the Manchu regime. Also in 1906, Chiang left his hometown and departed for Japan, a nation emerging as a model of modernization and militarization in Asia. He initially enrolled at the Baoding Military Academy but soon transferred to the Tokyo Shinbu Gakko, a preparatory school specifically for Chinese youth aspiring to enter the Imperial Japanese Army Academy. In Japan, Chiang not only absorbed modern military techniques, but was also deeply influenced by revolutionary ideas from his fellow Chinese compatriots. They were supporters of overthrowing the Manchu court to establish a Han-led republic. Among them, Chiang became close friends with Chen Shimei, a prominent revolutionary figure. It was Chen who brought Chiang into the Tongmeng Hui in 1908, the revolutionary organization founded by Sun Yat-sen that laid the foundation for China's modern revolutionary movement. After completing his studies at the preparatory school, Chiang continued to serve in the Imperial Japanese Army from 1909 to 1911. This period not only helped him accumulate military knowledge and experience, but also prepared him to step onto the dynamic political military stage of early 20th century China, where he would gradually become one of the central figures in modern Chinese history. Upon hearing news of the Wuchang Uprising in 1911, the event that marked the beginning of the Shanghai Revolution, Chiang Kai-shek immediately returned to China, determined to contribute to the overthrow of the Manchu dynasty. Armed with military knowledge acquired in Japan, he joined the revolutionary forces as an artillery officer and was given command of a regiment in Shanghai under the leadership of his friend and mentor, Chen Shimei. It was here that Chiang's relationship with Chen grew ever stronger, making him one of Chen's most trusted aides. It was also through Chen Shimei that Chiang first came into contact with Shanghai's criminal underworld, particularly the Green Gang led by Du Yusheng and Huang Jinrong. The close entanglement between politics, revolution, and organized crime in a complex metropolis like Shanghai made Chiang acutely aware of the practical power that informal, extra-legal networks could wield in the pursuit and maintenance of political authority. Following the initial success of the Shanghai Revolution and the establishment of the Republic of China, Chiang became one of the founding members of the Kuomintang, KMT. However, when Yuan Shikai seized power, dissolved the parliament, and plotted to become emperor, many revolutionaries, including Chiang, resisted in the Second Revolution of 1913. After the uprising failed, Chiang was forced into exile, alternating between Japan and the foreign concessions in Shanghai, which offered relative safety. A major turning point came on May 18, 1916, when Chen Shimei was assassinated by Yuan Shikai's agents. After Chen's death, Chiang succeeded him as the leader of the Chinese Revolutionary Party in Shanghai, keeping the revolutionary flame alive at a time when Sun Yat-sen's political standing had hit rock bottom. Most of Sun's former comrades in the Tongmenghui had grown disillusioned and were reluctant to continue the struggle under the banner of his exile party. But another turning point arrived in 1918, when Sun Yat-sen moved his base of operations to Guangzhou. Chiang Kai-shek left Shanghai to join him, beginning a new and challenging phase of his political life. Tensions soon arose between Sun, who advocated military unification of China under KMT leadership, and Chen Jiangming, the governor of Guangdong, who championed a federalist system centered on provincial autonomy. These tensions reached a climax on June 16, 1922, when Yeju, one of Chen Jiangming's generals, launched a surprise attack on the presidential palace in Guangdong. Sun Yat-sen was forced to flee to a nearby shipyard and board the warship SS Haichi to escape. His wife narrowly escaped death during the shelling. Later, they reunited aboard the SS Yongfeng, where Chiang Kai-shek had just arrived after returning from Shanghai, where he had been conducting his mother's funeral. That same year, Sun sent Chiang Kai-shek to Moscow to study the Soviet political and military system. While there, Chiang met with several top Soviet officials, including Leon Trotsky. However, after a period of careful observation and study, he concluded that the communist model was unsuitable for China's social realities. Even so, he decided to send his son, Chiang Ching-kuo, to the Soviet Union to study, a move to prepare for future contingencies. Upon returning in 1924, Chiang was appointed by Sun Yat-sen as commandant of the newly established Whampoa Military Academy, an institution created to train the Corps Officer Corps for the revolution. Although he tendered his resignation just a month later, due to dissatisfaction with the Kuomintang's growing reliance on the Comintern, he ultimately agreed to stay at Sun's request and cooperated with Zhou Enlai, a Communist Party member appointed as the Academy's political commissar. At Whampoa, Chiang began to build a loyal military force, one not only devoted to the Kuomintang, but also personally loyal to him. The young officers he trained during this period would later become the backbone of Chiang's army, the force that enabled him to rise to the pinnacle of Chinese politics as the political heir of Sun Yat-sen and the undisputed leader of the Kuomintang. After Sun Yat-sen's death on March 12, 1925, a major power vacuum emerged within the Kuomintang, KMT, sparking an intense internal struggle between three key figures: Wang Jingwei, who succeeded Sun as chairman of the Guangzhou government; Liao Zhongkai, a progressive leader closely aligned with the communists; and Hu Hanmin, a representative of the conservative right. The rivalry quickly turned violent. In August of that year, Liao was assassinated and Hu was arrested under suspicion of involvement. At first it seemed Wang Jingwei would prevail, but his influence suffered a devastating blow after the Zhongshan warship incident, a political coup quietly orchestrated by Chiang Kai-shek. On March 20, 1926, Chiang declared martial law in Guangzhou and launched a sweeping purge to eliminate Soviet advisors and communist influence from the National Revolutionary Army, the Whampoa Military Academy, and the inner workings of the KMT. The party's right wing, long skeptical of Soviet and communist interference, strongly supported his move. Fearing the loss of Soviet influence in China, Joseph Stalin instructed Soviet advisors to yield to Chiang's demands. The communist role in KMT leadership would be reduced in exchange for continued cooperation. As a result, by May 15, Chiang had effectively seized military power, although his authority remained challenged by the regionally fragmented structure of the nationalist forces. On June 5, 1926, Chiang was officially appointed Commander-in-Chief of the National Revolutionary Army. Just weeks later, on July 27, he launched the Northern Expedition, a massive military campaign to fulfill Sun Yat-sen's vision of unifying China under KMT leadership by defeating the northern warlords. The campaign proceeded along three fronts. Wang Jingwei's forces advanced westward to capture Wuhan, Bai Chongxi moved east toward Shanghai, and Chiang himself led the Central Army with the goal of taking Nanjing and then pressing onward to Beijing. However, by January 1927, Wang Jingwei and his left-wing allies had seized Wuhan and declared it the new seat of the nationalist government. With the guidance of Soviet advisor Mikhail Borodin and an alliance with the Chinese Communist Party, Wuhan became the stronghold of opposition to Chiang's faction. On April 12, 1927, Chiang launched a large-scale purge against communists in Shanghai, initiating a nationwide wave of political violence known as the White Terror. Thousands of Communist Party members were arrested, executed, or disappeared across the country. Despite the purge, Chiang allowed Borodin and Soviet General Vasily Blücher to withdraw safely to avoid a direct confrontation with the Soviet Union. Despite the civil conflict within the KMT, the Northern Expedition continued. Chiang's forces defeated warlords across central and southern China, but in Shandong they encountered the Japanese army, which was occupying the region. This confrontation led to the Jinan Incident of 1928, a violent clash that further complicated Chiang's path to unification. After establishing a new nationalist government in Nanjing, supported by conservative figures like Hu Hanmin, Chiang expelled all remaining communists and Soviet advisors from official institutions. This marked the formal beginning of the Chinese Civil War. Meanwhile, Wang Jingwei's Wuhan government quickly collapsed under military pressure, and Wang was forced to surrender and take a position within Chiang's administration in Nanjing. Though Chiang had solidified control over the south and much of the central regions, international recognition of his government required the capture of Beijing. In June 1928, Manchurian warlord Jiang Zuolin was assassinated, clearing the way for the allied forces of Feng Yuxiang and Yan Xishan to seize Beijing. Jiang's son, Jiang Xuelang, then declared allegiance to the Nanjing government, marking the official completion of the Northern Expedition and the end of the warlord era. Still, national unity remained largely symbolic. The 1929 disarmament conference failed to resolve deep divisions among the former warlords, such as Yan Xishan, Feng Yuxiang, Li Zongren, and Zheng Fekui. They formed an anti-Chiang coalition, but Chiang swiftly defeated them in the Central Plains War, further consolidating his power. In tandem with his consolidation of political authority, Chiang sought to legitimize his leadership through symbolic alliances. On December 1, 1927, he married Soong Mei-ling, the younger sister of Soong Qingling, widow of Sun Yat-sen, thus becoming Sun's brother-in-law and strengthening his claim as Sun's political heir. Initially, the Soong family had rejected Chiang due to his prior marriage and concubines. In response, Chiang divorced his wife and cut ties with his past, pledging to study Christian doctrine, the Soong family's faith. He read the Bible twice as gifted by Mei-ling before deciding to convert. 3 years after their marriage, Chiang was baptized at the Soong family's Methodist Church. With the Northern Expedition complete, Chiang was officially appointed chairman of the national government on October 10, 1928, a position equivalent to president. Western media began referring to him as the Generalissimo, a symbol of his claim to the legal legacy of Sun Yat-sen. However, the China Chiang had quote-unquote unified remained deeply fragmented. Though defeated in name, many former warlords continued to exercise near-sovereign power over their regions. On the international stage, Chiang trusted none of the great powers, not the US, Germany, or the Soviet Union, all of whom he saw as imperialist forces meddling in China's affairs. While negotiating tactfully to reclaim national sovereignty, he openly criticized the hypocrisy of foreign policy from these powers. Chiang was also accused of suppressing the bourgeoisie and attempting to control their assets to fund the growing government apparatus. While he himself was not known to be corrupt, critics pointed to his tolerance of the Soong family, especially his wife, Soong Mei-ling, and his brother-in-law, TV Soong. The Soongs were accused of embezzling tens of millions of U.S. aid dollars. U.S. President Harry Truman once angrily remarked, "They're all thieves, every damn one of them. And they stole $750 million of our aid and invested it in real estate in Sao Paulo and even New York." From a fatherless boy raised in a salt merchant family, Chiang Kai-shek had climbed to the pinnacle of power in China. But his journey to truly unify the nation was far from over, and the fierce battles ahead, especially with the Japanese invaders and his communist countrymen, would ultimately determine his fate and the destiny of a generation. Thank you so much for watching and listening. If you enjoyed this content and found it interesting, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos.